Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, Honorable Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Chang-Sang Lim from the ISS Secretariat. First of all, thank you very much everyone for joining us today for this webinar, organized to present the draft action plan developed by ISA in support of the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. Before we begin, allow me to briefly explain some of the logistics and ground rules. To our panelists, we kindly ask you to mute your microphone for now, and remember to turn it on when you're given the floor. However, please keep your camera on throughout the webinar for our easy identification and smooth proceeding. To all of you who are with us today, please use the chat function if you wish to ask a question. We'll respond to your questions in writing, and we'll make the responses available on the website. Lastly, please note that this webinar is currently being recorded, and the recording will be made available online on the ISA website shortly after the event. With this, I now have the pleasure to invite the ISA Secretary General, His Excellency Mr. Michael Ludge, who will also chair this webinar, to deliver his opening remarks. Please, Secretary General, the floor is yours.
Wherever you are in the world, welcome to this webinar. I'm Michael Ludge, Secretary General of the International Seabed Authority. I'm here in Kingston, Jamaica, together with the permanent representatives of France and Argentina to the International Seabed Authority. The objective of our webinar today is to present to you the ISA Action Plan for Marine Scientific Research in support of the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, which starts in 2021. The draft action plan has been identified as one of the priority decisions for the ISA Assembly to adopt before the end of 2020, which I think well reflects the importance ISA attaches to the decade. Over the next 2 hours, we're going to have the privilege to hear from a series of eminent speakers, including leaders in international organizations, high-level government representatives, and leading scientists, to give their impressions of the way in which ISA can contribute to achieving the objectives of the decade. Our commitment to the decade comes directly from the specific and unique mandate given to the authority by the UN Convention on the Law of the Sea as it relates to marine scientific research in the area. And let me highlight 3 aspects of this. First, UNCLOS requires the authority to promote and encourage marine scientific research in the area for the benefit of humankind. Second, it also requires the authority to coordinate and disseminate the results of such research. And third, it is the responsibility of the authority to ensure that capacity building programs are developed to strengthen the research capabilities of developing states and technologically less developed states. These 3 pillars of our work are reflected in the draft action plan. Of course, the action plan has also been developed in line with the objectives identified for the UN decade, and at the core of the action plan, there are 6 strategic research priorities that are aligned with these objectives. We will hear more about those research priorities this morning. But now, as we begin, I have the great pleasure to invite His Excellency, Mr. Denis Vibo, Permanent Representative of France to ISA and President of the Assembly, to deliver some preliminary comments. Monsieur l'Ambassadeur, bonjour, vous avez la parole.
Secretary General, thank you very much. It's a pleasure for me to be here today for this webinar. The draft action plan, which will be further presented and discussed by the different panelists, is certainly a critical component of the work that's being done by the authority in fulfilling the mandate given to it by the United Convention on the Law of the Sea. In fact, most of the work undertaken so far by the authority is intrinsically related to scientific research. Not only because this is the fundamental objective of any prospecting and exploration activities allowed under the legal regime set out in UNCLOS, but also because it is through the advancement of science and knowledge that the authority has implemented its mandate for the last 25 years. We traditionally hear about this concept of evolutionary approach that UNCLOS requires the authority to follow in its work. But what needs to be underscored is that such evolution cannot be successful without being properly informed by science. This aspect is too often forgotten, and it is therefore of particular importance to recall this specific feature today in the way the authority, like no other international organization, works and progresses. It is simply remarkable. With that, so accordingly, the action plan that the Assembly is invited to consider for adoption is not only in the continuity of what has been agreed by the members through the strategic plan and the high-level action plan for 2019-2023, but more importantly, reflects accurately what the authority is about. First, advancing science and knowledge to ensure the sustainable development of seabed mineral activities in the area. And second, ensuring that this is done for the benefit of mankind. The very thorough and detailed elements contained in the action plan will certainly be of great importance in the years ahead, and we are confident that this will be a significant contribution for the UN Decade of Ocean Science to be really successful. With that, I thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellency. Well, it's now time to open our first panel. This is dedicated to the importance of marine science for the sustainable development of ocean resources and to support the effective implementation of international law. So I will begin by inviting His Excellency Luis del Solar Dorrego, Permanent Representative of Argentina to ISA, who is with me today in the studio. So, Excellency, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Michael. I really appreciate to be here, and good morning to everybody. Historically, Argentina attaches great importance to all things related to the oceans and the law of the sea. For this reason, strategic initiatives promote marine scientific research and the protection of the marine environment constitute a state policy for a country. National efforts in ocean matters cannot be done in isolation, and international forums such as the International Seabed Authority provide us with the opportunity to exchange knowledge and perspectives and coordinate efforts to meet the objectives established at the international level and ultimately ensure that sustainable development of our societies also reach all maritime areas. Our country wishes to take this opportunity to reaffirm its strongest commitment to comply with the United Nations Convention of the Law of the Sea and the 1994 Agreement of the implementation of Part 11 of the Convention, instruments that provide the fundamental legal framework for the development of activities in the area. In particular, Argentina promotes within the authority scope the adoption of measures aimed at preventing and repairing potential damage to the maritime environment, promoting compliance with the principle of common heritage of mankind applicable to resources in the area, and compliance with the norms relating to the abilities development and the transfer of technology to developing countries. Argentina is proud to have been invited by Secretary General to act as champion of the Authority Action Plan in support with the United Nations Decade of ocean science and sustainable development. Thank you, sir, for this very kind invitation for my country. In this sense, our country is committed to contribute and work together with the authority to promote the objectives of the decade, especially those related to the promotion of maritime scientific research in the area, equitable access to the results, and the participation of developing states in the activity carried out there, always respecting the principle of common heritage of humankind, of resources, and the protection of the maritime environment. In this regard, we congratulate the authority for holding this very important seminar. As a country of the South, we understand that the implementation plan of the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, starting next year, January 1st, will be a central opportunity, both at the national and international level, to promote the oceanic issues of all kinds. We all agree that research reaching the ocean we want requires a process that includes diverse and varied phases to acquire the necessary skills to provide knowledge and to provide effective action based on the knowledge. Argentina understands that improving current ocean models will be possible to acquire new information that allows a greater understanding of past situations, as well as predict more accurate geological, physical, social, and cultural and biological events still unknown. Though the outcome of the decade will only be achieved if policymakers, innovators, and society have their tools at their disposal to transform data and information into solutions. Argentina shares and supports the idea promoted by the IOC to create an oceanic community through a digital data system, capable of fully representing the socio-ecological system of the ocean. Therefore, said digital system must include information and knowledge to develop tools that promote the exchange of capabilities between generators and users. This way, scientists, planners, and decision makers can be back at all levels. Another fundamental issue that concerns today is the strengthening of culture oriented to the oceans. It agrees the importance of increased dissemination of knowledge among the scientific community, governments, companies, industrial sector, and civil society as a way to promote growth and create opportunity for social development in regions linked to the oceans. We know that the decade foresees the need for resource and mobilization mechanisms, can make a clear contribution to technical cooperation and the promotion of transfer of technology so that all member states, and in particular developing countries without distinctions, can develop action within the framework of the decade. Argentina will participate with conviction in these global efforts, trying to help the decade legacy will be a very meaningful one. Thank you very much.
I thank you very much, Excellency, and I must say I'm really looking forward to working with you and working with Argentina to promote the activities of the decade. Well, now we can go over to Paris, and it is my great pleasure to invite His Excellency Vladimir Priebenin, Executive Secretary of IOC UNESCO, our sister organization, to take the floor and make a presentation.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary General, dear Michael, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, all courtesies observed. I would like to actually induce you in the ocean decade, as we call the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, and I would like to start the intervention by the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of IOC by thanking the International Seabed Authority not only for invitation to this meeting, but also for your excellent cooperation in the course of preparation of the implementation plan of the decade. Indeed, this cooperation was on the level of organizations, and also I would like to personally thank Michael Lodge and his very talented team for taking the discussion forward, because the action plan actually is quite developed and is very impressive for us. And we, please trust us and understand how difficult it is to plan science for the future. Indeed, we have excellent cooperation between ISA and IUC. This is enshrined in MOU between our two organizations. And what is also important, that we have complementary mandates looking into the marine scientific research in the ocean. So what is also important is that the implementation plan for the decade was created in a truly inclusive manner. So in the meetings that were conducted, and there were, I would say, dozens of different meetings previously, before the coronavirus, they were mostly conducted in Presentia, and most of the current meetings are conducted, of course, on online version. So what is happening now is that thousands of people think about the decade, tens of organizations and institutes, I would say around 100 countries think about how they can benefit and contribute contribute from the decade. What is also important is that we had excellent support from the Department of Ocean Affairs and Law of the Sea, and it is their guidance that helped us to work with everyone and prepare a plan that is actually following from the provisions of UNCLOS, United Nations Convention for Law of the Sea. And what is also emerging is a division of labor between different organizations in the United Nations system with the ocean mandate. So the action plan, I think, is an excellent document. It reflects the current state, and I think it's a little bit ahead even of what IUC has been able to compile, because in the latest version of the plan, we, based on the contributions also from ISA, from many countries, we extended the number of societal outcomes to 7, and included the societal outcome of an inspiring and engaging ocean, which is, I think, very important. And then we formulated 10 challenges. And on the slide that you see now in front of you on the screen, there are 10 challenges. I would like to compare them with strategic research priorities of the action plan of ISA. And I would like to state that despite this, your priorities probably came to being before our priorities and the challenges, they matched really well. I would say that strategic priority number 1, number 2, and number 4 of the ISA plan really focus on the challenge 2, ecosystems, focusing on the deep sea ecosystems. So your strategic priority number 3 is and would be an excellent contribution to the sustained ocean observing system. So we all think that the data is the vehicle of progress in the domain of ocean governance and management. And your contribution number 5 is actually our digital representation of the state of ocean, which is challenge number 8. And of course, we have to think about capacity development. I would like to attract your attention to the challenge number 10. About the behavior change in relation to the ocean. I think this will unite us all, because from the discussions on climate change, from many other discussions, we started to realize that it is the human nature that is really difficult to deal with when we would like to save our environment for the future generations. That means contribute to sustainable development. So I would like to state that your research priorities really match the challenges of the decade. So what is important, that these are areas of work in which we would like still to design what needs to be done in terms of science. The philosophy that is emerging in the decade is also a philosophy that is emerging in many areas and many think tanks that focus on the future of the ocean. And the main paradigm that is now shaping is the paradigm of integrated ocean management, not really focusing on individual elements, but think how we can manage the ocean through coastal zone management, maritime spatial planning, marine protected areas. And we always realize that science guidance is important for making all these elements most efficient. And of course, the paradigm is how we can use the ocean and how we can serve the ocean for the future generations. United Nations Convention of Law of the Sea remains the constitution, and I would say that the framework for moving forward with this motion. And I would like to say that in terms of ocean management, there are now excellent ideas in the domains of how we can make ocean management more equitable, how we can develop our human relations with the ocean, how we can involve data so that there is a data sharing that is inspired by our human relations of the ocean, development of ocean economy that is sustainable, development of finance, including national accounting. These are all facets of the building that we are building from these little Legos. So together, ISA, IOC, we will move forward towards managing the ocean sustainably. So, and I already say this is going to be a behavior change. So on the 15th of October, IOC issued a call for action, which contains two parts. I would like to present to you the part number one. We seek now your ideas about the programs of the decade. The programs are the largest components of decade actions. So think about such big programs like Census of Marine Life, World Ocean Circulation Experiment, Tropical Ocean Global Atmosphere Study. So these scientific experiments and programs changed the ocean science, and this is what we would like to do. So the next 3 to 6 months will be the period when the plan, which is basically setting the goals of the decade, setting the arrangements for the decade, setting the area of work of the decade, will be also populated with scientific ideas. So this will probably one of the most interesting and most maybe dramatic, but very important periods in the history of ocean science. So we will populate those boxes with scientific ideas, and will produce propositions for the largest components of the research under the decade. So together with ISA, IOC will engage in this brainstorming exercise, and hopefully we will come up with excellent programs for the decade. We all realize that this is yet an unfunded activity, but the inspiration, engagement of all the world in the scientific work and also towards managing the ocean sustainably is what excites us. And I think the future is quite bright in our cooperation and making the decade successful, taking us to really the ocean that we need for the future that we want. Thank you so much, Secretary General, for inviting IOC to speak.
Thank you so much, Vladimir. And let me also say it's been a great pleasure to work with you and with the very great team that you have there in Paris working on the decade. Really, this is only the beginning. Once we have the action plan endorsed, and I know your own decade plan is going through the UN General Assembly as we speak, this is the beginning, and we already have a very, very good cooperation with IOC UNESCO. It can only get better. We look forward to strengthening and deepening that relationship as we go forward. So thank you for your intervention today. Well, we were hoping to go now to hear from the chair of IOC UNESCO in Buenos Aires, but it appears that we have a technical problem with the link with Buenos Aires, so we'll come back to that when we can. For now, let's move on to consider how the work of ISA can advance scientific knowledge of the deep sea in practice. And at this stage, it's a great pleasure for me to introduce the Honourable Minister of Oceans and Fisheries of the Republic of Korea, Mr. Seong-hyuk Moon.
Dear Mr. Michael Lodge, the Secretary General of the International Seabed Authority, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen. Very good afternoon from here in the Republic of Korea. It is my pleasure to make a congratulatory speech for this wonderful webinar event of the International Seabed Authority. I'd like to express my sincere gratitude to the ISA Secretariat for organizing this high-level webinar. And it gives me an immense pleasure to have the honor of joining this meaningful event. My special appreciation also goes to the ISA Secretariat for developing ISA Action Plan for Marine Scientific Research in support of the United Nations Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. As its part, Korea has been closely working with the Secretariat as a responsible UN member, as well as a contractor of mineral resources in the area. A good case in point for such close cooperation is an international online workshop on deep-sea taxonomic standardization, strategic approaches for collaboration. This workshop was held for 2 days from September 15th with the sponsorship of my ministry, which is the Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries, in brief, MOF. And in collaboration with the ISA Secretariat and the MABIK, the National Marine Biodiversity Institute of Korea. This workshop helped us flesh out the skeleton of our future research cooperation on deep-sea biodiversity. Besides, MOF also had the pleasure to hold a 2-week online workshop on the development of a regional environmental management plan, in brief, REMP, for the area of Northwest Pacific. This workshop was also convened in close collaboration with the Secretariat and another Korean institute called KIOST, which is the Korea Institute of Ocean Science and Technology. This workshop helped all of us build up our scientific basis to develop an effective REMP for the area of the Northwest Pacific. It is my belief that the ISA has a critical role to play in the sustainable development of deep-sea mineral resources. There is no doubt that the ISA will guide the international community to better achieve what the UN Ocean Decade envisions. Korea, as an advocate to the ISA, is determined to contribute to the successful implementation of the UN Ocean Decade. As always, the Republic of Korea will continue to make every effort to achieve our common goal of sustainable development. And I look forward to our long-standing collaboration with the ISA. Once again, I'd like to congratulate the ISA on the development of the action plan and wish all of you fruitful results from this event. Thank you very much indeed for your kind attention. 감사합니다.
Thank you so much, Minister, for those very insightful comments, and especially for the ongoing support that Korea has been providing to ISA, including through our recent cooperation in organizing workshops on taxonomy standardization and for the development of a REMP in the Northwest Pacific. Well, we can now go over to Brussels, where we'll be joined by Ms. Veronica Weitz, Director of DG Mare, who will now contribute to discussion. So, Veronica, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, distinguished participants. Thank you for inviting also the European Commission to this high-level webinar and giving us, as European Commission, the opportunity to contribute to this panel. The topic of this panel is very important. It is basically about knowing before doing, and thus preventing harm through activities for which the impact is not known. This is very relevant for the European policy context and for the political priorities of the European Commission, notably the European Green Deal. Under the European Green Deal, we have the ambition to transform the European Union in a resource-efficient economy with no emissions of greenhouse gases in 2050 and where economic growth is decoupled from resource use. At the same time, we also aim to conserve and enhance the European Union's natural capital and to protect it from environmental-related risks and impacts. Achieving this will require more science to develop circular economies and cleaner technologies. This is, of course, directly relevant to the conservation of marine biodiversity and the sustainable use of the marine resources, as required by our new Biodiversity Strategy for 2030, which is one of the key initiatives under the European Green Deal. This strategy makes clear that the fight against biodiversity loss must be underpinned by sound science. That is why our future research program, Horizon Europe, will include a long-term research agenda for biodiversity and also the specific missions under Horizon Europe, such as on healthy oceans, will significantly contribute to filling knowledge gaps. Moreover, we will establish a new knowledge center for biodiversity in cooperation with the European Environmental Agency. But already in 2016, we have made better knowledge of the oceans a political priority for our international ocean governance agenda. I wanted to give you this policy context to show you our commitment for a good science policy interface and before going into the depths of this panel. So, how has deep sea research advanced our general understanding of deep sea environment? Deep sea research conducted so far has certainly advanced our understanding of the deep sea environment. We are proud as European Commission that we have contributed to a better knowledge of the deep sea environment by supporting a number of important research projects, such as MEDAS, Blue Mining, VAMOS, Blue Nodules, or Robust. If you look through the results of these projects, they have definitely helped to improve the understanding of the possible environmental impacts of deep sea mining activities and on how to best mitigate these impacts. We have also participated in the development of regional environmental management plans in the North Atlantic. Such plans are fundamental tools to safeguard the marine environment, and they should be in place in the relevant areas before exploitation activities can start. However, the main findings of all these projects, of all what has been done up to now, still shows that our knowledge of deep sea ecosystems, of related organisms, and of the interconnectivity and functions remains limited. It is therefore really essential that research continues to improve the knowledge of these vulnerable ecosystems and of the impact of mining on them. Therefore, before any contract for exploitation is granted by the ISA, we must ensure that the effects of deep sea mining on the marine environment have been sufficiently researched, that the risks related to a possible exploitation are understood, and that the available technologies and practices will not cause serious harm to the environment. The ISA has certainly a crucial role to play for promoting and encouraging marine scientific research in the area, including through coordinating such research and disseminating its result. This is part of the ASA mandate. With the preparation of the draft action plan for the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, the ISA is fully living up to its mandate. Let me also say that we are very pleased that the ISA is organizing a series of excellent virtual scientific workshops during the autumn and winter. Let me also stress in this context that collaboration is key to overcome our knowledge gaps. As our past commissioner always said, we know more about the moon than we know about the ocean, which covers 70% of the Earth's surface. Overcoming this knowledge gap cannot be done by one organization alone, by one country alone, or by one scientific discipline alone. On the European Commission side, we are committed to continue to invest in ocean research, to raise awareness of the ocean's importance, and to develop knowledge and solutions on a range of issues, and this through collaboration. For instance, we are very interested to work with the ISA on the Sustainable Seabed Knowledge Initiative. This is a fantastic initiative that aims at describing and characterizing 1,000 new species from our oceans. Another possible area of cooperation could be the development by the ISA of a robust monitoring and supervising system for activities taking place in the area. This would include the development of in situ instruments and tools connected to the surface and by satellite. We firmly believe that before any exploitation starts, it will be key to have such a system fully operational. Let me finish by saying knowledge and science is what we need to understand better the effects and risks of seabed exploitation on the deep sea ecosystems and whether practices and technologies for the exploitation of deep sea minerals are safe. And this before we start these activities. We welcome, therefore, very much the draft action plan by the ISA in support of this important United Nations Decade of Ocean Science. I am convinced that its strategic research priorities will allow progress on all fronts. We are looking forward from the side of the European Commission to working with the ISA on its implementation and to making the UN Decade on Ocean Science for Sustainable Development a success. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for your attention, and thanks again, Secretary General, for inviting the European Commission to this important event. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Veronica, and we certainly welcome the cooperation from the European Commission. It's been a great pleasure to work together. You mentioned the series of workshops taking place this fall and this winter, and the Commission's contribution to those workshops has been nothing less than outstanding. We certainly look forward to working with the European Commission in the future to advance the implementation of UNCLOS, to advance the action plan, and, as you mentioned, to support the biodiversity strategy of the European Union. So thank you very much for those comments. Well, we can now go to Japan, and I want to introduce at this stage Professor Yoshihisa Shirayama, who I think is very well known, a leading expert in deep sea ecology, for some of his thoughts on ISA's contribution to the Decade of Ocean Science.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for inviting me to the very important webinars designed or organized by International Seabed Authority. Today I'd like to give an presentation about the expected contribution of International Seabed Authority to UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. As you know, the critical situation of ocean is a global common recognition. World Economic Forum listed 5 threats to the oceans in 2014. In 2015, the G7 also pointed out 4 great problems in the ocean. One is ocean acidification, second is warming and deoxygenation, third is loss of marine biodiversity, and finally the degradation of marine ecosystem. G7 held in Japan in 2016 followed up with AG7 in Germany and pointed out the importance of the support of global ocean observations such as Argo, and also pointed out the importance to promote the open science. One of the most recent success stories about how science can contribute to the policy making about the ocean is the case of G20 summit held in 2019 in Osaka. Before that summit, S20 meeting was held in Japan. S20 is a scientific contribution to the G20, and a recommendation was made by the 20 scientific academies belonging to the G20 countries. In the case of Japan 2019, the symposium was held to make a recommendation to G20 on March 6, and the theme was threat to coastal and marine ecosystem and conservation of the ocean environment, with special attention to climate change and marine plastic waste. So many scientists gathered and make a recommendation to the G20 there. In the symposium, the threats to the marine ecosystem was agreed among the scientists, and one is the climate change and the other is the increase of the marine plastic waste. Climate change, especially warming, make a lot of the problem in coastal regions, especially for example, Isoyake phenomenon. Ocean acidification already making a dissolution of the shells of marine plankton. On the other hand, the marine plastic waste is increasing everywhere, even in the deep sea. Under recognition, S20 scientists made a recommendation to the G20 for 6 points listed here. And that recommendation was handed over to the Prime Minister Abe, and then led to a very ambitious Osaka Blue Ocean vision that says by 2050, marine plastic litter to the ocean will become zero. So it's a success story of the science contribute to policy making and make a sustainable development goals. So let's go back to the recommendation of the S20. There are 6 points, and if international seabed authorities also proactively coordinate these 6 points, then that will become a very big contribution to the ocean science. Especially number 4, number 5, and number 6 are already carried out by International Seabed Authority, and if you or I said more proactively about this, I believe that contribution is great. Thank you very much for your attention, and if you have any comments or questions, please write an email to me. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Shirayama. And our next speaker is Professor Gordon Patterson from the United Kingdom, who is also a member of the ISA's Legal and Technical Commission.
Dr. Patterson, please turn on your microphone.
My apologies. I thought I had turned on my microphone. One of the problems of doing these online things. Thank you very much, Secretary General. Excellencies, distinguished presenters, colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It's a great pleasure to be able to say a few words about the way the ISA uses marine scientific research to meet its strategic aims and objectives. The ISA's mandate means that it has to manage activities in the area, that is, the parts of the ocean beyond national jurisdiction. And this area represents 40% of the planet's surface, nearly 60% of the world ocean. Now, this is a monumental responsibility, a responsibility that the ISA undertakes on the behalf of humankind. And marine scientific research plays a critical role in enabling the ISA to fulfill its mandate, particularly to protect the marine environment and to preserve biodiversity. Now, central to addressing these principles is the gathering of baseline data by contractors undertaking exploration. And to ensure that the data gathered is done in a standardized way and using the best available methodologies, the ISA has developed a series of recommendations which guide what environmental parameters the contractor should gather, how the environment should be sampled, and the appropriate methodologies to analyze the resulting data. Now, these recommendations are developed by the leading experts in deep sea science. The ISA seeks to harness global expertise to ensure that policy is keeping up with the advances in science. The data that the contractors produce is collated and collected in a systematic way and looked after by the ISA. The recent developments of the ISA's database, Deep Data, fulfills another strategic objective: to organize and make environmental data available to a range of audiences. The recent series of workshops introducing deep data demonstrates the ISA's commitment to the overall objectives of data sharing and data interoperability under the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. Using workshops, the ISA seeks to use the latest findings from marine scientific research and feed them into policy to support its strategic directions. Particularly the protection of the marine environment. Workshops bringing together the necessary critical mass of experts needed to address key issues and the challenges of managing the area. You have heard my fellow presenters talk about the Taxonomic Workshop, which the ISA recently held. But in fact, this was just one of the most recent in a whole series. And the ISA has been at the forefront of understanding that taxonomy is the linchpin to diversity and ecological knowledge in the area. The ISA seeks, by holding such workshops, to harness the latest thinking and also to encourage and stimulate further research, which will add to our existing understanding, but also filling the gaps in our knowledge. Expert workshops are also key to developing regional environmental management plans, as been mentioned earlier. Building on the very first REMP developed by the ISA for the Clipperton-Clarion polymetallic nodule fields in the Central Pacific, the ISA has convened a series of workshops in collaboration with many people, many ministries and countries to develop plans for other mineral resources. The process was started in Qingdao with a workshop for cobalt-rich crusts associated with seamounts in the Central Pacific, and continues on with a workshop that was held, as you heard, a couple of weeks ago, sponsored by ministries in Korea. For seafloor sulfide deposits, a science-based workshop was held last November in Evora, Portugal, which was also co-sponsored by the European Union, and will continue with an online workshop at the end of this month, sponsored by ministries by the Russian Federation. By collating all the existing data and knowledge of the areas and bringing together the relevant experts, albeit these days virtually, practical regional plans for sustainable future can be developed. And in addition, key gaps to our understanding can be identified. Addressing the challenges of managing the area is a major undertaking, one that the ISA cannot do alone. And the ISA actively seeks collaboration and encourages the development of marine scientific research, which will broaden our understanding of the area. To that end, the ISA is involved in a number of international multidisciplinary research projects around the world and has developed partnerships with the relevant UN bodies such as the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission. The ISA's plans for marine scientific research, together with its strategic plan, demonstrates the organization's commitment to the UN Development Goals and the UN Decade of Ocean Science and Sustainable Development. Thank you very much. Appreciate this opportunity to be able to say a few words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gordon, and thank you, I think, on behalf of all the other LTC members for speaking about the work of the LTC. Well, our next segment is going to be entirely dedicated to the importance of capacity building and technology transfer to ensure that developing states can fully benefit from the opportunities provided to them under UNCLOS. And our first speaker in this segment is Her Excellency Fekita Utoikamanu, who is the High Representative of the UN Secretary General for Least Developed Countries, Land Countries, and Small Island Developing States. So it's a real pleasure to welcome you, Fekita, to the webinar.
Excellency, Secretary General of ISA, Mr. Michael Lodge, ladies and gentlemen. As many before have said, oceans are the frontier for us to learn about, understand, and cherish in this century. So I'm honored to share with you some thoughts at this high-level webinar organized by ISA. I welcome the much-needed draft action plan in support of the UN Decade for Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. As the UN High Representative for the LDCs, LLDCs, and SIDS, one of my functions is to champion partnerships, and this does include the area of marine scientific cooperation. After all, the surfaces of oceans on our shared planet exceed that of land masses, and we have a way to go in understanding much better these precious resources. We all know that oceans, in their climate role, with their resources, are key to achieving the SDGs, and especially so in the most vulnerable 91 countries of our planet. So I very much value the continued and ever-strengthening partnerships with ISA. Just in June this year, we convened an ambassadorial briefing for the LDCs, LLDCs, and SIDS missions here in New York. The PRs of Malawi, Kazakhstan, and Belize, speaking on behalf of the three groups, urged us all to strengthen national and regional capabilities in marine science and technology. This century, in spite of all its many challenges, is a century of ever more advanced and sophisticated technologies, but not everybody has equal access to or sharing in some of these truly frontier-breaking technologies. This is why it is now that we must focus on capacity development to enable these countries to participate in and benefit from marine scientific advances. We cannot leave them out, we cannot leave them behind. We must ensure they can access and work with these new and exciting technologies for the effective management of the oceans and its resources. At present, too often, the LDCs, LLDCs, and SIDS lack the expertise, the institutional capacities, and the financial resources to participate in and benefit from ocean research and development to ensure they can manage their ocean resources in sustainable ways. These are considerable challenges given the complexities and also both acquisition and maintenance costs of the new and emerging industries linked to marine scientific research. Just think of deep sea mining, especially given the high cost and advanced technologies associated with such activities. To date, some 30 contracts for exploration have been signed with ISA. That is good, but none of them are held by LDCs or LLDCs. It is now that we must invest in the transfer of marine technology, make sorely needed financing available, and bridge this unacceptable gap inter alia through training of personnel, strengthening research capacities, and building institutional capacity. I'm sure we can all agree that our goals is for the seabed exploration and exploitation to deliver sustainable benefits to all mankind, and that those benefits are shared equitably. But for that to happen, we must ensure everybody can participate. To get this done, we must strengthen coordination and collaboration at the global and regional levels to increase marine science cooperation, to have better access to data and information, to deliver training, and to overcome barriers to the development of institutional and individual scientific capacities. Ladies and gentlemen, oceans are our global common good, and so we all share responsibility to ensure that LDCs, LLDCs, and SIDS are equal partners, are not left out, and are equal stakeholders in the pursuit of scientific research and exploration of the deep seas. This also means that we must pay due attention to their national priorities, and as I've said before, the capacity development needs. One such forum to do that is through the LDC Technology Bank. Its aim is to contribute to the development of science, technology, and innovation in the least developed countries. I encourage ISA to explore opportunities for collaboration with the Tech Bank. From OHR LLS perspective, we increase our support to SIDS to foster private sector partnerships through the SIDS Global Business Network Initiative. A focus is on fostering ocean partnerships in its current work program. However, due to COVID pandemic, the 2020 SIDS GBN Forum, which was scheduled to take place in Palau in December, has now been postponed to 2021. Once more, I wish to invite ISA to partner with OHRLS to further the discussion on strengthening marine scientific capacity in SIDS. In accordance with Article 148 of UNCLOS, allow me to emphasize the need to scale up support through targeted programs to address the special needs of landlocked countries. We must do all we can to assist the LLDCs to overcome the obstacles arising from their disadvantaged geographical location, remoteness, and lack of access to and from the seas. Ladies and gentlemen, my key message for you is that within the framework of UNCLOS and through the International Seabed Authority, we can and we must foster greater cooperation to enhance opportunities for the most vulnerable countries. OHR LLS is here to work with you to facilitate the implementation of the ISA Action Plan. You can count on us. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fikita, and you can count on us too. We look forward very much to continuing to collaborate with OHRLS to ensure that the needs of LDCs, LLDCs and SIDS are fully addressed. And of course, we have been cooperating very much in the context of the Vienna Programme of Action and the Samoa Pathway, and long may that continue. We can now go over to Oslo to welcome Ms. Marta Zielkowski, State Secretary in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Norway. Welcome, and I pass you the floor.
Thank you, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen. Let me just start off by offering my sincere appreciation for the opportunity to participate in this panel discussion on capacity building, which is a topic of utmost importance for Norway. Let me also offer my gratitude to the co-chairs for your opening remarks and for moderating this panel discussion today. There is an increasing interest among states, industry and other stakeholders for extracting deep sea mineral resources, both in the area and from coastal states' continental shelf. The authority is now finalizing the regulatory frameworks necessary for extraction activities to commence in the area. They will play an important role in contributing to the development of the scientific knowledge that is necessary to secure sustainable mineral activity in line with the new regulations. As deep sea mining continues to grow as an industry, we must ensure that also developing states can benefit from such operations. This is especially salient regarding deep sea mining in the area, as the mineral resources there are a common heritage of mankind and thus belong to us all. This is why capacity building needs to be central to our collective agenda. The authority is important as a provider of and facilitator for competence development and transfer of technology to developing states. In discussions on developing cooperation, the authority is frequently mentioned as an example of how capacity building should be conducted. And for Norway, the authority is an interesting partner for our new Ocean for Development program, and we're looking for possibilities to expand our cooperation. The challenge for the authority is to ensure that capacity building and technology transfer measures are developed and implemented effectively, subject to all legitimate interests, including the rights and duties of holders, suppliers, and recipients of technology, and that they reflect the needs of developing states, identified through transparent processes in which developing states are full participants. The authority is currently engaged in a number of capacity building activities. As an example, the authority, in partnership with the African Union and Norway, implemented a project on fostering cooperation to promote the sustainable development of Africa's deep seabed resources in support of Africa's blue economy. The project includes a series of workshops in Africa to raise African decision makers' awareness of these resources and the opportunities that they represent. Norway is proud to support this initiative to build capacity of developing states in this field. This project corresponds well with the mandate of the authority, and it corresponds well with the Norwegian aim to cooperate with other states to make it possible to utilize rights and possibilities under UNCLOS to improve development. Cooperation and partnership between states that are in different stages of economic development and thus have unequal opportunity to thrive in this field should generally be encouraged. Some forms of capacity building could even be made mandatory in certain instances. Building on the detailed provisions on capacity building and technology transfer contained in UNCLOS, the authority must establish clear obligations on developed parties to assist developing states. This could be done by sharing marine scientific research, engaging in collaborative research and training programs, and assisting developing states in establishing infrastructure that is necessary to conduct deep sea mining activities. Capacity building can also consist of sharing information and technology transfer. Scientific information, including data relating to seabed and minerals, could be shared in an open access system. However, sharing information means that we also have to increase the capacity of developing states to make use of that information. One possibility that should be considered is to build on existing science networks and strengthen their practical relevance for developing states. One could also imagine practical cooperation on the institutional level between oceans management administrations in developed and developing states, as well as cooperation between relevant organizations such as ISA, UNDESA, and the International Hydrographic Organization. Finally, let me take this opportunity to assure you that Norway will remain a steadfast supporter of the authority in all its future endeavours, and that we will continue to assist in building capacity and competence in areas where Norway has particular expertise. Thank you.
Thank you very much, State Secretary. We're very grateful for the support of Norway, not only in respect of the rule of law, but also with respect to the need to assist developing states to actively participate in all facets of the activities that are undertaken in the area. You mentioned a number of examples of the extremely successful cooperation between ISA and Norway, and we look forward in the future to building on that and to strengthening our cooperation. So thank you for joining us today. Well, the last speaker in this segment is Mr. Liu Feng, Secretary General of COMRA, the China Ocean Minerals Research and Development Association, and also the chair of the ISA China Joint Training and Research Center, a brand new initiative which was formally launched just a few days ago. So it's now my pleasure to go over to Beijing to hear from Liu Feng.
Hello, good morning and good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Liu Feng from Beijing, China. China Ocean Mineral Resources Research and Development Association. Today, I'm going to introduce ISA China Joint Training and Research Center, JTRC. The first motion was made by the Chinese government. The Ministry of Natural Resources of China submitted a draft MOU to the International Seabed Authority, which is about to establish a joint training and research center. During its 25th session of ISA, the Assembly took an action to endorse the MOU in July 2019. The MOU was signed by ISA and MNR in Beijing in October 2019. This is the signing ceremony. The vision of JTRC is to enhance the capacity building of developing countries, including landlocked and geographically disadvantaged countries, small island countries, and least developed countries. To participate extensively in international seabed affairs, and to promote the implementation of the principle of common heritage of mankind. The mission of JTRC is to provide training and capacity building opportunities for the developing countries, to stimulate and advance the conduct of marine scientific research by developing states, to foster cooperation in marine scientific research and technology development among developing countries, to increase participation of developing countries in the area. The launching ceremony was jointly held last week in Beijing and in Kingston via video link. JTRC was officially launched by MNR Deputy Minister, Mr. Wang Hong. He is also the administrator of the State Oceanic Administration of China, and ISA Secretary General, Mr. Michael Lodge. This is a launching ceremony. After the launching ceremony, the first steering committee meeting was held. The meeting elected the chair of the steering committee, adopted rules of procedure of steering committee, and we also discussed prioritized training course based on ISA strategic plan for period 2019 to 2023 and the UN 2030 agenda for sustainable development, SDG 14. These are the steering committee members. 3 members are from ISA side, 3 members are from Chinese side, plus the Director General of JTRC. For the next step of JTRC is to project a training plan based on the most needed capacity building of developing countries, to select experienced teachers from worldwide, to matriculate students from developing countries, to develop institutional regulations for JTRC operations, to conduct the first training program in 2021. So I thank you very much for your kind attention. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Liu Feng, and certainly is an exciting initiative to be involved in. We're looking forward very much to the way that it unrolls in the coming months and years. A really exciting new partnership. And it is now on the fundamental role played by strategic partnerships that our next segment is going to focus. So I'm very pleased to introduce at this point Her Excellency Rabab Fatima, who is permanent representative of Bangladesh to the United Nations. She'll be joining us from New York.
Thank you, Michael. Mr. President, Mr. Secretary General, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues, good morning. And I thank you, Mr. Secretary General, for organizing today's meeting and for inviting me to share a few thoughts. Excellent discussion so far, and I would like to especially thank USG Fekita for very eloquently highlighting the situation of the most vulnerable countries, such as the LDCs and the LLDCs. Excellencies, the draft action plan on marine scientific research by ISA is a good starting point towards supporting the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. This is expected to institutionalize scientific research in the deep sea and the responsible management of ocean resources. Going forward, it will be crucial to forge strategic partnerships among relevant stakeholders for putting the action plan to practice. Bangladesh is currently standing at a critical juncture of its development journey. Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina has set a target of achieving developed country status by 2041. However, with scarce land-based resources, the ocean is our best hope. In recognition of the value of oceanic resources, we are investing in building our capacities on maritime issues and to harness its full potentials. Now the blue economy is our new frontier. To maximize the full potentials of the blue economy, we need an equitable share of marine resources, especially in areas beyond national jurisdiction and in ISA-controlled areas. And for that, Bangladesh attaches high importance on strategic partnership with other entities to advance research in the deep seabed. We would be happy to partner with ISA and other stakeholders in conducting joint research in the deep sea as part of the implementation of the action plan. As an intergovernmental body with a large membership, as well as engagement with various non-governmental stakeholders from industry and research organizations, we believe that ISA has an important convening and coordinating role in facilitating multi-stakeholder strategic partnership in conducting scientific research in the deep sea. We welcome the initiatives already undertaken by the ISA, including its strategic partnership with the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission of UNESCO, creation of the Endowment Fund for Marine Scientific Research, internship programs, launch of the Deep Data and the Secretary General's Award for Excellence with a view to advancing deep seabed research. Yet there is scope to do more. And in this regard, I wish to make a few points. First, the future strategic partnership for ISA with other entities should focus on the capacity building of and technical assistance to developing countries in advancing the marine scientific research in the deep sea. Second, inclusivity in advancing deep seabed research should be maintained to ensure that no one is left behind, especially those with limited or no access to the deep sea resources. Third, multi-stakeholder strategic alliances and partnerships with relevant sub-regional, regional, and global organizations could play an important role in generating productive outcome in the field of marine scientific research. Fourth, special emphasis needs to be given to ensure gender parity in the field of marine scientific research. And we are happy to know that 133 women have been trained from the developing countries so far. Fifth, adequate, predictable, and innovative financing for conducting research will remain critical for realization of the action plan. And finally, Mr. Secretary General, Excellencies, UNCLOS stipulates that the marine scientific research in the deep sea is to be carried out for peaceful purposes and for the benefit of humankind as a whole. Therefore, the integrity of the marine environment and its biodiversity should be protected while conducting research in the deep sea. In conclusion, I would like to reiterate the unwavering commitment of Bangladesh to the International Seabed Authority in fostering strategic partnership in advancing scientific research in the deep seabed to implement the ISA action plan. And Mr. Secretary General, Bangladesh remains committed to do its part. I thank you again.
Thank you very much, Excellency. And I forgot to mention at the beginning that, of course, Bangladesh has the presidency of the ISA Council this year. A very difficult year, of course, for all of us, but I want to congratulate and commend Bangladesh for the excellent job that has been done so far in presiding over the work of the Council and ensuring that work can be achieved, even despite very difficult circumstances.
Thank you very much for your patience.
We also, you mentioned that much more can be done, indeed, quite right, and we look forward to working closely with you in the future. Well, at this point, we're going to showcase a short video prepared by the ISA Secretariat on an introduction to ISA's global database, which we call Deep Data. And now we go over to Monaco to introduce Dr. Matthias Jonas, Secretary General of the International Hydrographic Organization.
Distinguished participants, it is an honor for me to participate in this webinar. Hydrography as a discipline focuses on the physics of the marine environment. This includes measuring and charting the seabed topography, but also sea level, tides, currents, and parameters like sea temperature and salinity. This information is relevant to all activities involving the sea. Data on currents, tides, and underwater obstacles are important for maritime trade routes. Information related to the topography of the seabed and the strength and regularity of currents can be used to develop marine renewable energy projects. Environmental factors such as temperature and salinity information, which detailed hydrographic survey record, can also be used by industries like fishing and aquaculture. The International Hydrographic Organization is an intergovernmental, technical and consultative organization whose main goal is to ensure that all the world's seas, oceans and navigable waters are adequately surveyed and charted. We do this through the coordinated efforts of the world's national hydrographic offices. Partnership and international cooperation are the pillars of how we function. The fact is, getting up-to-date information about the ocean and conducting surveys can be costly and requires specialized technology, which is constantly evolving. We provide a forum for our member states to come together and cooperate. This includes sharing information and data, cooperating on sea surveys and scientific cruises, capacity building, and so on and so forth. Each partner brings their strengths. The results speak for themselves about the effectiveness of such an approach. Cooperating with other international organizations or with private organizations can also produce significant positive results. The IHO, IOC UNESCO, and the Nippon Foundation, for example, are cooperating on the Seabed 2030 project, which aims to have a complete map of the oceans by 2030. Thanks to this cooperation, the portion of the seabed which has been properly charted has increased from 15% in 2017 to 20% in 2020. This data is in the public domain and can be used by a wide variety of stakeholders. Part of the strength of this initiative lies in the involvement of new players and the increasing contribution of crowdsourced data. Private sector companies from a variety of industry, including oil and gas, renewable marine energy, minerals and others, can submit some of the data from their surveys, in particular information about depth. By doing so, they greatly help increase our knowledge of the ocean and the seabed. Currently, for much of the open ocean, the data used to compile sea floor maps are estimated depths. They are largely derived from satellite gravity measurements, which have a very coarse resolution and only show the largest seamounts, ridges and canyons. Many underwater features remain yet to be discovered. In this sense, the collaboration between IHO and ISA is also a good example for a successful partnership which is providing concrete results and increasing our knowledge of the ocean. Great progress has been made in ensuring the standardization, exchange and availability of much needed bathymetric and other relevant information. By facilitating the provision and exchange of bathymetric survey data or metadata collected as part of the activities that are controlled or organized by ISA, all ocean stakeholders are benefiting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Matthias, and thank you for highlighting also that ISA, and especially ISA contractors, are contributing bathymetric data in particular to initiatives such as Seabed 2030 to improve everybody's knowledge of the ocean. This is very important. Well, I'm very happy to say that our technical gremlins have been resolved and we can go now to Buenos Aires and hear from Ariel Troisi, the chair of IOC UNESCO. Ariel, it's a real pleasure to welcome you, and you're going live now.
Mr. Troisi,
Yeah.
please turn on your microphone.
I'm trying to do that. I'm on that.
Wonderful, thank you.
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. Please go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Mr. Secretary General, Michael. It's a real pleasure and honor for me to be here with you at this webinar. Of course, as you mentioned, there were some technical glitches. As much as I would have liked to be with you in Kingston for this meeting, we have the possibility to be together and discuss these important matters using these virtual platforms. This year is of particular significance to us at the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, not only because we are celebrating our 60th anniversary, but because we took the final steps in the preparation of the implementation plan of the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, which is currently under consideration of the UN General Assembly, as it was mentioned before today. This plan is the result of a highly participatory and dynamic process, and it's a robust and inclusive high-level framework, setting the firm foundations needed to succeed by 2030. The ocean is facing, we all know, multiple challenges, and its health is showing signs of decline. The UN Decade is proposing a change of tack in the generation of ocean knowledge through, as it says in its mission, transformative ocean science solutions for sustainable development, connecting people and our ocean. The mission of the decade is based on synergies and clear principles of co-design, co-development, and co-delivery in a multi-stakeholder environment. And as it was mentioned by our Executive Secretary, Vladimir, it's structured around 3 objectives, 7 outcomes, and 10 challenges. There's a clear need for sustained observations, for capacity development and transfer of technology, so we can enable an acceleration in the generation and use of relevant ocean science for sustainable solutions. We can definitely not manage what we do not measure or understand. The deep sea presents additional challenges with, in some cases, extreme knowledge gaps on seabed topography, ocean processes, ocean dynamics and variability, deep ocean ecosystems and services and vulnerabilities, with features, the biodiversity and resources still undiscovered or unidentified. But then for transitions to occur in response to drivers of change, we need both stakeholders responding to these drivers and researchers, innovators, and developers generating niche-level innovations. Deep ocean observations and research community will certainly benefit from an agreed agenda to collect and synthesize high-quality scientific data during the decade and beyond to answer strategic questions about deep sea. This agenda should also support and engage existing sustained observing systems and programs to enhance relevant deep sea data acquisition, improve understanding of natural variability, and jointly develop the standards around the acceptable level of statistical power for monitoring. Greater understanding of the deep sea environments and improved data quality and sharing will contribute to the 2030 agenda, as well as to complementary policy frameworks. We need to dynamize the development of solutions-oriented tools and services for decision makers. We need to improve a broad network of stakeholder engagement to catalyze new partnerships. We need to stimulate innovation and increased access to data and technology, guaranteeing geographic, generational, and gender diversity. We at IOC, as a scientific technical body, we have a mandate to promote international cooperation and coordinate programs in research services and capacity building in order to learn more about the nature of and resources of the ocean and apply that knowledge. And one of our raisons d'etre includes collaborating with other organizations and especially with those of the UN system. In our case, with this long-term relationship we have with ISA, through this action plan in support of the UN Decade of Ocean Science, is bolstering its capacity and expertise to manage its mandated environmental stewardship function, and it highlights fundamentals as observations, advancing scientific knowledge, capacity development, and strengthening alliances and partnerships. I fully trust and confident, I'm sure, that we will succeed working together in fidelity to the comprehensive UN game plan for the ocean, under the true spirit of co-design and co-delivery of the decade. We will jointly overcome the challenges and achieve the ocean we need for the future we want. And we very much welcome and salute this initiative of ISA with this action plan. And I know you're thinking already and figuring out the actions you're going to implement and put forward to achieve your and our common objectives. Thank you very much once again for this opportunity to address this webinar.
Thank you so much, Ariel. I'm very happy that we were able to finally reach you in Buenos Aires, and thank you for your support. We look forward to working together with you. Well, since last year, ISA has also started a very fruitful collaboration with OECD, and therefore it's a great pleasure for me to go back over to Paris and to welcome Claire Joly, who is the head of unit in the Directorate for Science, Technology and Innovation. So Claire, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Secretary General, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, let me start by thanking the International Seabed Authority for hosting this event and for inviting the OECD. So I bring you greetings from Andrew Rycroft, the Director of the OECD Directorate for Science, Technology and Innovation. For the past few years, ISA has provided strong motivation for others to join and cooperate on making the ocean economy more sustainable at international levels. This panel focuses on fostering strategic partnerships. At the OECD, this is a fundamental part of our work, and we value this expanding relationship with ISA and its community of national delegates and experts. In our activities on ocean economy measurement and on exploring the role of science and innovation, we really believe only constructive partnerships will lead to concrete actions to preserve and use sustainably the ocean. As we head into the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development, let me share here 2 points where we see the International Seabed Authority play an important role with its action plan. The first one, the International Seabed Authority can become a larger forum where deep sea science already meets technology, but also where even more standards can be fostered. I have had the privilege to see the potential firsthand with the recent workshop on deep sea taxonomic standardization last September. As we learn more about the deep sea, the more challenges research institutes, academia, and industry players face with what to do with the large collection of species defined, samples, pictures, videos, huge amount of data, with unforeseen classification issues as thousands of species are discovered. This workshop demonstrated that ISA is an important convening place for very different research communities to discuss their practices and set standards. As a second point, and we heard this during the previous session, more needs to be done for developing states to benefit from the science and technologies linked to deep sea exploration. The International Seabed Authority plays already an important convening role for many actors, but more could be done. There's an increasing number of scientific cooperation programs with developing states by oceanographic centers and foundations, particularly from OECD countries. For example, IFREMER in France, NOC in the UK with the Commonwealth Blue Charter, the Air Center in Portugal, Azores, are already conducting ocean exploration and seabed mapping programs in close cooperation with different developing states. These programs often provide training to the local research communities, although mutual learning is key for successful projects. Here we see again the ISA playing a key role in fostering new connections based on its own expert communities with existing ocean science networks, not duplicating, but providing a forum where practical knowledge transfer on the deep sea can benefit a much larger community. The action plan will be crucial in this. Let me finish by saying that at the OECD, we aim to play our part in contributing concretely to the success of the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. We share the vision that partnerships and transparency will be key to advance knowledge of the deep sea and its ecosystems, and in balancing well conservation and sustainable uses. This will be facilitated by relevant new indicators, continuous review of effective policy instruments, and sharing of best practices. So we are ready to help, bringing our expertise and raising awareness on the importance of supporting the development of a sustainable ocean economy with strong partnerships. So thank you again for your attention, and we look forward to working with the International Seabed Authority and with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire, and thank you for those very positive and encouraging comments. And indeed, we certainly look forward to strengthening our partnership with OECD. Well, we can now go back over to Oslo, back to Norway, and it's a great pleasure to welcome Sterla Hendrickson, Special Advisor to the United Nations Global Compact, another body with whom ISA has been cooperating very closely over the past 2 years. Sterla, I see you on the camera, and welcome.
So thank you very much, Michael. Hello, everybody. Congratulations to Michael and your team for this very interesting and important seminar. And thank you so much for the invitation. I'd like to highlight 3 aspects and ambitions concerning fostering strategic relationships. One is, I think that we need partnerships to advocate and underpin the need for global governance in this field, that we have rules, regulations, and enforcement in a world where the rules-based UN-led world order is under stress, where we see a fragmentation and withering of international cooperation, where we see that geopolitical rivalry and realpolitik is back in fashion. There, I think it's in particular important that we have strong global cooperation and partnership around these common and very important resources. The other aspect is that I think we need partnerships to advocate and underpin the need to conceptualize and contextualize deep sea mining. It's an activity, it's a field which cannot be considered in isolation or only relative to Sustainable Development Goal number 14, life below water, because we have to ask ourselves, what are the alternatives to seabed mining? Can we reduce, can we reuse, can we recycle use of rare earth elements, minerals and metals? If not, what is then the alternative? Is that terrestrial mining with all the environmental and social costs that those very often incur? And it's in that context we have to consider deep sea mining. And also, and not least, we need to partner, I believe, with companies to mobilize the business sector's insights, innovations, and investments in order to succeed in the monumental task that ISA has taken on behalf of humankind. You're in a particular and rare situation that you are, or we as a global community, to develop a set of rules and regulations before the industry itself is maturing. And that is, of course, an advantage in the sense that you do not have to consider all the vested interests of established actors already. At the same time, of course, it's a complex interface between environmental, technological, and commercial considerations, where I believe that a strong partnership is very important. And in that context also, I would like to commend ISA for the dedicated efforts that you, Michael, Marie, and the rest of the team on ISA has done in contributing and participating in the Ocean Action Platform of the UN Global Compact. UN Global Compact is, as many of you will know, the world's largest corporate sustainability initiative, has a membership of 10,000 plus companies and 4,000 civic society organizations. And on this, in this action platform, we have invited leading ocean-related companies, financial institutions, institutional investors, the main UN specialized agencies, the World Bank, and the work is also supported by the governments of Norway and Portugal. And ESA has participated actively, and I think also in the three main work streams that we have pursued. One is a narrative and all relevant for ESA and seabed mining. One is a narrative of the ocean. What is the context and role of the ocean, and also seabed mining in pursuing the 17 sustainable development goals on a broad scale. The second is a mapping and assessment of the global governance and regulations of the ocean, where of course the files that we are now developing at ISA is will be part of that. And thirdly, and last but not least, the Sustainable Ocean Principles, which sets up a set of principles for ocean activities to ensure high standards on environment, social and governance. And for these principles, we have also developed a set of sector-specific guidances on offshore shipping, aquaculture, and so on. We're also deep sea mining, and with very valuable contributions from ISA, will soon be published. And this is important because it gives references and guidances to industrial activities in the deep sea mining field. And as an extension of this, UN Global Compact, the Ocean Action Platform, has also entered into an MOU with the Unesco IOC for the Decade of Ocean Science, where we are collecting, sharing, and disseminating ocean-related data, and of course, in close cooperation with ISA. So I think, Michael, on a concluding note, I think that in all these aspects, global governance, contextualizing the seabed mining activities as such, and also mobilizing the business sectors, I think that these are sort of the key elements of the partnerships, and I think on our hand, we are very proud and happy with the work that and cooperation that we have with you and your team. So we're looking forward to extending and deepening that cooperation going forward. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sterla. Really a great statement, and congratulations to you on all the work that the Global Compact has been doing. We fully support it, and we will be continuing to work with you as much as possible. Well, our last speaker on this panel, on this segment, is Ward Appletons, who is the Program Manager for OBIS at IOC UNESCO. And Ward will be joining us by a video from Ostend.
It is an honor for me to address this important event, and I apologize for not being available to join you all live here, because we are currently running the annual meeting of the steering group of the Ocean Biodiversity Information System, or OBIS. I'm working for the Intergovernmental Oceanographic Commission, where I coordinate OBIS. By providing access to over 60 million distribution records of more than 135,000 marine species, OBIS is a global open access data information clearinghouse on ocean biodiversity. This year alone, we added 6 million new records from 574 new datasets, and over 10,000 previously unreported marine species were added to OBIS. For the deep sea, below 500 meters, we now have 2 million records of 26,000 species. Below 4,000 meters, we only have 61,000 records of 3,600 species. If you look at those records through time, you can see a huge spike in 2016. This spike is caused by this one big data set on marine microbes from the Australian investigator that did a voyage from the Antarctic ice edge to the equator in the South Pacific. They took Niskin bottles up to 6,000 meters depth. This dataset was published in Obis in June 2020, this year. So after 5 months, it is already downloaded 641 times. This is certainly not the only big deep sea research cruise in the past 10 years, but it is thanks to the efforts of the Australian Obis team in Hobart that these data are now publicly accessible. There are a few more of those examples in Obis. This data sharing should become common practice for all sampling campaigns. We are facing many challenges in the data management domain. And one of those are that the many innovative observing technologies based on imaging, DNA sequencing, and remote tracking produce large amounts of data that need to be processed, standardized, and quality controlled. Developing these standards and best practices with the research communities is a huge undertaking. It is like language. We need correct spelling and grammar so we can effectively communicate. So once the data are interoperable, we can then develop tools and products that can serve the science and management communities. Over 100 scientific papers are published each year using data from Obis. Also, for the ISA and the contractors, we need these data for baseline studies and impact assessment reports. The ISA and IOC with Obis can play a key role in providing reliable data for science and evidence-based management. As a first step in our collaboration, our teams are currently working on developing a data exchange pipeline. We are looking forward to a fruitful collaboration and jointly develop Ocean Decade actions that will have a lasting impact for decades to come. Thank you.
Thank you, and that brings us to the end of this series of presentations, which has also involved a tour around 12 different countries. I hope you found the presentations and interesting. However, before we close, it's a privilege to hand over the floor to His Excellency Mr. Liu Jianmin, Under Secretary General for the Department of Economic and Social Affairs. Some closing thoughts.
Mr. Secretary General of the International Seabed Authority, ISA, Excellencies, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, I'm pleased to deliver the closing remarks at this high-level webinar. On behalf of the United Nations Department of Economic and Social Affairs, UNDESA, and in my capacity as the Secretary General of the 2020 UN Ocean Conference. I wish to commend Secretary General Mr. Michael Lodge and the staff of ISA for presenting a very comprehensive action plan. Once adopted, it will be implemented as a part of ISA's contribution to the UN Decade of Ocean Science for Sustainable Development. I'm pleased to note that ISA Action Plan has placed emphasis on 6 strategic research priorities, namely advancing scientific knowledge and understanding of deep sea ecosystems, standardizing and innovating methodologies for deep sea biodiversity assessment, facilitating technology development for activities in the area, enhancing scientific knowledge and understanding of potential impacts of activities in the area, promoting dissemination, exchange and sharing of scientific data and deep sea research outputs, and increasing deep sea literacy, and strengthening deep sea scientific capacity of the authority members, in particular developing states. Indeed, the action plan will contribute to important global observations and research efforts envisaged under the Decade of Action to deliver the Sustainable Development Goals. This is in line with the United Nations Convention on the North Sea and other UN processes to protect oceans and its resources, such as Archie Biodiversity Targets, the Samoa Pathway, and the Sunday Framework for Disaster Risk Reduction. Excellencies, all nations need scientific solutions to achieve the 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development. The core objective of the Decade of Action will be to improve the scientific knowledge base. To this end, capacity development and partnerships are critical for areas that are lacking in, especially seeds and LDCs. The theme of the forthcoming United Nations Ocean Conference is scaling up ocean action based on science and innovation for the implementation of the Goal 14, stock-taking partnerships and solutions. In this spirit of partnerships, UNDESA and the ISA are jointly implementing a 2017 Ocean Conference voluntary commitment. Its aim to build capacity for blue growth in seeds, targeting 3 Caribbean seeds and 4 Pacific seeds sponsoring states under the Abyssal Initiative. Implementation of the 3-year capacity development project is progressing well. Moreover, seeds partners like Norway and others are willing to further support UNDESA and ISA in this initiative and keen to contribute additional resources to extend its period of implementation. Distinguished colleagues, our knowledge of ocean is still very limited. 99% of habitable marine areas lack basic biodiversity knowledge for their management. Only 5% of the ocean floor has been mapped at high resolution. 103 billion square miles of deep sea area in perpetual darkness, and millions of marine species are still unknown to science. Marine science plays a critical role for the sustainable development of the ocean and its resources. Advancing the understanding of biodiversity is a prerequisite to achieve the sustainable development of deep seabed activities and prevent harm to the marine environment, creating enabling conditions to build the capabilities and capacities of developing states and facilitate technology transfer will be key to ensure that all can benefit from the blue economy. These important elements embody the vision of the ISA's action plan. In this connection, the ISA's planned contribution to the UN Decade of Ocean Science must be commended and supported. I thank you.
Thank you very much, Under Secretary General Liu. Well, I hope this series of excellent presentations has given you all a sense of the breadth of SA's engagement in science. It only remains to me to say to everybody, thank you for watching. Thank you for spending time with us today. To the ISA members and observers, I look forward to the Assembly adopting the action plan and starting work on its implementation. To our colleagues from other international organizations, thank you for your cooperation and support, and let's continue to work together in the interests of all our member states. To friends from the scientific community, thank you for your interest in the work of ISA, and I look forward to to working with you and our members to deliver the science we need for the ocean we want. And finally, of course, thank you to the staff, to those behind the camera who've worked very hard to make this whole. So from here in Kingston, Jamaica, from myself, from Permanent Representative of France, from the Permanent Representative of Argentina, from all in the Secretariat, thank you for watching and goodbye.
Thank you, Secretary General. So this brings us to the end of this webinar, and we'd like to take this opportunity to remind you that the recording of the event will be made available on our website shortly, along with the responses to your questions. Once again, Honorable Excellencies, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, our sincere appreciation to all of you for being here with us today and for your invaluable support for the work of ISA. Have a good morning, afternoon, and evening, and we wish you stay safe and well. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.